Good afternoon. Welcome to the Holladay City Planning Commission work session. It is August 19th. We have 3 items on the agenda. We have a public hearing, 2 discussion items around it, and then an Ola Vista subdivision amendment and some minutes. And,
real quick, Chair, on
yes.
item number 1, and maybe Carrie was going to cover this anyway, but there was a notice issue on the public hearing. So the recommendation is it was 1 day short of the 10-day notice. Is it 10 days, right? 1 day short of the 10-day notice. So we're going to not close the public hearing. We're going to continue it. The Planning Commission is welcome to discuss it tonight or next time. That's at your prerogative, how you guys want to do that tonight. But, either way, we need to continue it. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We will, when it's time for a motion on this, the motion will be to continue so that we can make sure the public gets due process on it. I don't see anything wrong with covering some of the questions with it in the work session. However, in the interest of, I'm guessing there's going to be a lot more questions on 1A, 1B, and 1 itself. Maybe we start the work session by jumping into item number 2 on there, talk about minutes briefly, and then circle back with 1. Everyone good with that for the work session? Okay. Yeah. And then I'll just, for the record, Commissioner Prince sent regrets and is not with us. However, we have the rest of the commission, council, and city staff with us tonight. So with that, Carrie.
Okay, item number 2, and I am going to suggest taking this item first as you work through the agenda so that applicant can move on quickly with their evening instead of hanging out here for a long discussion. Okay. And a note too on next week's, or I guess the next meeting, we will be getting into the general plan. So that's kind of interest of time getting through a lot of this stuff with this PUD tonight so that then we can work through some of this stuff on the general plan document tomorrow, because it will be a large draft document. We'll be going through that and review process. So just a good way to kind of split up our time by getting through some of the meat tonight. Okay, so Ollie Vista subdivision amendment. I believe this one's pretty straightforward. This was a subdivision PUD that was done in 2022. It's at 4877 South Holladay Boulevard. The property owner for both lots has purchased just a piece of property from the church that's on the rear side of the property. It's like 15 feet deep and the length of the back lot. So the amendment is to change the boundary of that subdivision from its existing location to incorporate that area that is being purchased. So Planning Commission is the land use authority for subdivision amendments when the boundary changes. So any questions on this one?
Do we have I didn't get a good chance to see it in the packet, and I apologize for that, but do we have just a quick map of what this is?
Oh, let me switch over to my other tab.
What will this let them do that can't do?
Nothing.
Okay, so there's no, then we're going to have another request for property here.
I have an opinion on this.
Yes.
This is when the legislature amended the LUDMA, Land Use Development Management Act for cities. They eliminated public hearings for subdivision modifications, but they still made it a planning commission requirement, even though it doesn't have any zone or impact or use changes or anything like that. It's simply, in order to amend a plat, a subdivision plat, the planning commission has to approve it. So you're going through this. I think this could be a staff, other than the law, this could be a staff approved thing because it doesn't have any impact on anybody but the 2 neighboring property owners, and they've already done their business. So, as in sold the property to the other one.
Yep, and if it was a PUD and they wanted to, if they now had enough land area that they could do another dwelling unit, they'd have to come back to the Planning Commission and amend the conditions of their PUD.
And this is an R110 zone?
Yes.
So technically, they could do 2 dwellings on this lot without it.
Right?
So the extra square footage would just be building imprint if they decide to do that?
Yeah. I believe that segment has a slope on it, and there's been just various drainage issues. They're just purchasing it just for some extra space.
Cool. Any questions on this one from commissioners for staff? Looks fairly straightforward, and appreciate the check the box clarification from council. All right. As far as minutes go, on the first set for 5-6, I do not recall seeing anything that stood out to me as adjustment. Did anyone else
No.
review and see anything in there? Okay. So those look good. I did see on the meeting minutes from 7:15, there was just one typo, and I don't know if it's worth correcting or not, but if, Carrie, you could go down to page 12, page 12 of the 7:15 minute. Right at the top there, it refers to Miss March, and I assume that is a typo for
Yes,
you?
Yes. Yep. I think I do have a name tag that says March, but that is not my actual name.
Okay. So that was the only one that caught me off guard. I was like, who's Miss March? Wait a minute, we got like calendar months? What's going on? So,
Noted. Thanks for catching that.
so that was the only thing I noticed on there, and I don't know, again, if that's relevant to have adjusted, but
Can we approve them saying that,
yeah,
Be corrected, yeah.
and then we don't have to do
yeah. Typo on 12, line 5. So that was the only thing that stood out to me on those. Anyone else have anything they noticed in the minutes other than they were just really long?
They were really long.
Okay. All right, so I think we're good on minutes, and now we can get into the fun meat and potatoes of this work session, which is is it Amare Vita?
Yes.
Wow, I can't believe I pronounced that right. All right, Amare Vita, here we go.
Okay. Amara Vitae. Vita. This is kind of a more unique PUD, as I'm sure you have all caught on, split between 2 different zones. So total land area is 11.42 acres. The east side of the creek is 1-acre lots. The west side of the creek is 2-acre lots. I do have a zone map pulled up that might be helpful too. It gives an idea of parcels in the area and how that's kind of divided. So as we talked about in the administrative hearing meeting, all of these lots that front onto Holladay Boulevard all have the R143 zone, and then this is the area that gets into the R187. Largely following Big Cottonwood Creek as it winds through. So I think we're all clear on our outline of procedure, so we don't need to go over that. Their plan is to put in a singular entrance on the Murray Holladay side with a private road, and then one entrance on 6200 South. Let's see, would it be helpful to look at their concept subdivision first? Let's start there.
Well, just to clarify real quick, this is 4 properties existing as it sits today,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So there's 3 along Murray Holladay and then 1 on 62nd.
Yep. Yes. And I have the totals for all of those on page 7. So there's 4.29 acres in the R187 zone, and then 7.18 acres in the R143 zone. So there's essentially, if you were breaking it down just by land area, there's 0.42 acres of excess across the whole project. A lot of the road area takes out of that 0.42 acres. So when they did their assessment for their concept subdivision, they did access all of the lots on the R143 side off of Holladay Boulevard. So they have enough land area there for 7 lots. The numbering is weird because they're starting their numbering over here, but 7 lots on this side. I talked a little bit about in the staff report how natural features are candidates for variances under state requirements because you do have a limitation on your building area. So the applicant's process on this would be a standard subdivision with a variance for lot widths. So that's how they have it shown and set up. Some of these will have a lot width that is less than the 100 required. As they would pursue a subdivision, they'd pursue a variance with that as well.
And because they own all these lots and can subdivide however, does this zoning also allow for, if they wanted to, not quite townhomes, but like, could they just put really skinny long homes in all of those lots? Is that right?
Right. Yeah, so they would have the same setbacks, and that would be like where a variance might have some subjectiveness with an appeals officer. They would say, okay, you can have a reduced lot width so that you have the same number of lots that you'd be entitled to based off of your land area, but you might have the same setbacks as you would on a standard one. Or they might say you could reduce the setbacks based off of the same lot width. So those would have, if it was a standard setback, 10% minimum on one side and 15 on the other. So you'd be looking at like a 9-foot setback on one side and 15 on the other side.
And it shows sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It shows in the picture you're showing right now, it shows a 100-foot creek setback. Is that what's mandated with this zoning and everything that we're looking at here, or is that their proposal? Sorry, hard P.
I'm not sure how it would apply because you have, in this situation, there's one parcel that's undeveloped, and undeveloped parcels have a 100-foot creek setback. The parcels that are already developed have a 50-foot creek setback. Things that exist in that area can stay, but they wouldn't be able to expand any uses that are in that 50 feet.
So with the lot configuration that's in here, anywhere that doesn't have an existing structure on it would have to be set back 100 feet then?
Yes. Yeah, because once you're now dividing into new lots, creating new property, now it's undeveloped. And so it would be the 100 feet.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
So if the argument is that the city benefit that they have to show is that they're preserving the corridor and the creek, they're not really preserving anything more than their law requires, the ordinance requires.
So that's then going into the PUD. I think that I don't remember the language in the PUD, but there's a benefit to both residents within the PUD, so they can be served by amenities within the PUD. I have the code up, we could look at that as well and kind of walk through that because that came up in the last meeting as well. When you have private property, there's not always going to be a city benefit. Sometimes the city benefit is open space or preservation of trees that have a larger kind of community benefit that's not directly benefiting the city. We don't have a requirement for dedication of any public areas or public amenities that are accessible on private lands. In the village, we do have a requirement for a public type amenity with development. So that's where you'll see like improved bus shelters or benches or other seating areas in the Holladay Village area specifically. So that code or that zone does have like a specific public benefit. When it comes into private land, there's not necessarily a direct public benefit. It's a more kind of overarching public benefit.
And you've got in the packet or in the paper handout you provided here on page 8 of 12, it has the required versus the proposed.
Okay, let's go down to the PUD.
Is that PUD related? Or is that for the
Yeah, it's,
item itself?
it goes kind of both. So concept, this doesn't require any private roads because all of the structures would be within 150 feet of a public road. There may be a private road here that goes back to this second one. In fact, there would be, because that structure would be further back. And there's enough land there to take out a road access for that. So conceptually, their lots all meet the standard with the exception of the lot widths on those east side ones. And Brett, I don't know what the process would be if, in a situation like that, if you'd apply for a variance first and then do a subdivision.
Sorry, that's a good question.
Because it's a clear, like, I know that whenever there's a creek that's taking a substantial portion of your land where you can't build on, you get
some,
it's a clear variance situation.
yeah, that it's unique to that property. Yeah, yeah, and waterways are typically, and grades too, depending on the grade.
And I think we have some allowance in our code for planning commission to make exceptions to setbacks based off of things. I know that we went through that on one of our previous subdivisions.
I think you can do an approval of the subdivision before you do the variance, but it would be conditioned upon being granted. So I don't think it requires, you need both.
Yeah.
So you can do one first conditioned on the other.
And that is one of the nice things with the PUD. You kind of get to incorporate some of that flexibility without having to go through this extra process that accomplishes the same thing.
And as far as open space tree preservation, each individual lot would still have to go through the same process as far as a tree plan.
Right.
And with the, and I don't know, with the current tree ordinance, would a property owner that has a creek situation like this, because I know we saw it with the one that was over here next to the apartments off Murray Holladay, would they be able to say, well, all the trees next to the creek are our tree preservation and we're going to scrape the ground clean on everything else? Because there's, you know, even though technically those are all required to be there by the standard.
Because again, it's that when you look at it as a substantial property right and that your property right is being limited by a significant area that you can't use at all, then it naturally pushes into where you can use. So the space that you can use is limited. So what follows that is that there's going to be more trees possibly affected in that area or more roads in that area because it is more limited.
Just looking at this through all the lenses, sorry. Appreciate you.
But that's a fair lens. That's a reasonable lens. You know, how do we make sure that we're not paving paradise? How do we make sure that we preserve our tree canopy? And isn't that our responsibility?
It's a balance. It's always a balance.
Technically, our responsibility is to make sure everything comes before us meets code and, you know, passes legal muster, but.
Yeah, there's always property rights that you are balancing, and that's largely what variances go into is here's what your property right would be, here's how your property right's being limited. So it's a situation where you can ask for adjustments. So it's pushing buildable areas into a smaller space.
I feel like I've monopolized a lot of questions, and Commissioner Gong is over here just chomping at the bit to ask
All right,
one right now.
let's, I think
No?
is everybody
Does this
pretty
really
clear on the,
What's that?
My question was on page 8, on the proposed setbacks. Do they really mean no proposed setback, or they're saying they do not intend to have interior and private roads?
on this one? So on their PUD, this is how they've identified their buildable area. They don't know what footprints of houses will be at this point because the property owners haven't decided on house plans. These are just very conceptual, like generally how they may lay it out. I think that they would like some flexibility on what like a front yard setback would be so they can bring maybe some garages up closer to the road and just lay it out in a different way with some more flexibility.
I mean, Commissioner Gong brings up a good point, though, in this packet, page 8 of 12, right? I mean, it's got these tables, and there's what's required by the zone, and then there's proposed, and it says none proposed. So does that mean wishy-washy, anything goes, or does that mean it automatically defaults to what's required?
You do have the ability to require some setbacks. In this PUD is entirely private, maintained by the same owner. And all interior private roads, it's all gated access. Their CC&Rs limit how the property can be sold. It can't be sold outside of their organization. So it's highly unlikely that anybody besides their own private use would be ever affected by setbacks inside of the project.
Well, for now, right? Like,
For now.
that's the fun stuff I find about property rights as we go through this process is like, it's a family now, and the family that bought the property up there's a family now, but when they all of a sudden sell a house because someone doesn't want it, and then they want to go change the rules 10, 15, 20 years later, now, oops, we messed ourselves up, right? And then the city's left to clean up the mess because their CC&Rs don't, jive with what city code does. Isn't that kind of what happened on that, what is it, Meadowmore, what was it called? The one we saw 2 weeks ago. You know what I'm talking about? The family, the Hinckley estate, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they sold the one property and the guy's like, what are you doing? That's my driveway. And it turned into this whole big contentious thing.
Yeah, and that's just private road ownership, how they sold off property. But yes, in theory, they could sell property. I don't know, because I am not a lawyer, I don't know the extent of their
See, they
CC&Rs.
should have done this process,
Yes,
and that wouldn't have happened.
Gotcha.
or done a subdivision with a public road all the way through.
That too. But yeah, you get into those places where it's not a benefit for the public to have the right of way all the way there. And
So with the side setback, but with the side setback, nothing being proposed, I understand on the private road, sure, put them wherever you want, I don't care, put them on top of each other, your family can hug each other through the window, whatever, but when it comes to where it actually abuts up to the public road, we still need that language in there, right?
Yes, and they do have that labeled on here. So they have a 20-foot setback along the front. This will be a 6-foot high wall. So this is serving as a side yard. They'll have, I think, front doors oriented here, but garages oriented here. They could have front doors oriented here. They could have garages oriented on the other side. There's just corners are always a little strange in that's standard subdivisions. People on corners change their addresses back and forth between streets.
I guess, so my follow-up question to that would be, what supersedes here? Because this table is what I'm showing in the packet, and then this drawing is something else. So which one is the sticking point?
I would just treat it as a side yard setback. Because otherwise it's a rear yard setback. They're just asking for a shorter rear yard.
Do you have any problems with the setbacks in the private road? If you look at
On this side?
Yeah, if you look at any ones that are adjacent to the private road, the setbacks are within the actual private road, so the house can actually be built on the street.
I guess,
You got to look really carefully, because I was wondering where the setback line was, and there it is under their hash
yeah.
for the private road.
You can clarify that with the applicant if the road is entirely in there. I think this darker line
I'm sure the
is
fire
the
department
setback,
probably
and
wants something
then
a little wider.
the lighter one is the private road. And I don't know if their boundary line is the private road or if there's a section of the private road that's within their property.
Okay, so we're not sure what
They're
maybe they just
proposing 6
drew it
feet.
on all the lots and then we'll
Yeah,
fix it later.
I think it's how it was surveyed, so that the private road might partially be within their property.
So on this map, it's showing the lots at 0.72, 0.88, 0.73, not an acre.
Right. So this one is the PUD layout.
Okay, so in,
So the total acreage gives you the density, and then
Right.
you can adjust the size of the actual lot, but you can't go beyond. If you have
They,
1 acre and 2 acre,
yeah,
you can only do 9 in here. But it doesn't require you to have a 1 acre lot under a PUD. That allows you to
they
adjust
could do
those.
1/4 acre lots.
So where they can do 7, the PUD would allow them to do 8, as long as they
okay.
borrow it from the other property behind.
Are they required to have the fence along Holladay Boulevard?
It's not a requirement. It's something they've already incorporated into their design as what they'd like.
There's not a fence there now, right?
I think there's a chain link fence on one property. There might be some, let's see, I'll pull this up. I'm so prepared today. So there's a wall here. Looks like wall there.
Yeah.
This is the section that just has the chain link fence. This next property has a wall.
Okay.
This is where the treatment facility is that has a wall. And then there's 2 parcels over here that are not included. Those have a wall. This has a fence.
Okay.
And then the property along 62 has this shorter wall section and already has a gate there. And that looks like some fencing that's set back a little further.
All right. Well, lots of good discussion points. We are just past the hour and should probably roll into the official work or official meeting, but any other questions before we close out the work session that need to be answered right now?
Nope.
Okay. So with that, we'll go ahead and close our work session. And then, yes, we do that this time. Or you, either one. I'll let you guys flip a coin.
Okay.
Arm wrestle.
All right.
Okay.
And then are we ready to start the official?
We are.
Rolling right in. All right. Good evening and welcome everyone to the Holladay City Planning Commission, August 19th. We have all commissioners in attendance except for Commissioner Prince, who sends regrets. City staff and council are present. And we have 3 items on the agenda. Before we get into everything, just a quick housekeeping note. It was proposed that we move item number 2 up to the top of the list so that that applicant can sail through a little quicker, because we'll probably have a lot more questions on the first. And then we do have a statement that we read for members of the public. And I've asked Commissioner Cunningham if he would do that for us.
The City of Holladay Planning Commission is a volunteer citizen board whose function is to review land use plans and other special studies, make recommendations to the City Council on proposed zoning map and ordinance changes, and approve conditional uses and subdivisions. The Planning Commission does not initiate land use application, rather acts on applications as they are submitted. Commissioners do not meet with applicants except at publicly noticed meetings. Commissioners attempt to visit each property on the agenda where the location, the nature of the neighborhood, existing structures, and uses related to the proposed change are noted. Decisions are based on observations, recommendations from the professional planning staff, the city's general plan, zoning ordinances, and other reports, by all verbal and written comments, and by evidence submitted, all of which are part of the public record.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And with that, we will start with our slightly adjusted agenda and move to item 2, the Ole Vista subdivision amendment, and ask that city staff give us a quick rundown on what that application is about.
All right, jumping into item 2. This is a subdivision amendment for the Ole Vista subdivision. It's located at 4877 South Holladay Boulevard. This was a subdivision that was approved in 2022. There's been a couple of amendments for landscaping changes since 2022. This new change is to add an additional area of land onto Lot 2. It's on the east boundary of the subdivision. Total area is 15 feet wide, 140.84 feet long. So adding 2,112.6 square feet to Lot 2. And that brings the total land area for Lot 2 to 0.51 acres. Still meets the required 10,000 square foot lot minimum size in the R110 zone for both properties in that subdivision. The TRC analysis is included in the staff report. Just no change to any fire access, no impacts with stormwater engineering, and no additional dwelling units being proposed. Any questions from the commission?
Okay.
Okay.
Do we want to hear from the applicant? Any questions for the applicant? Save them the trip if not. No?
Nope.
All right. Well, with that, I think we talked about this a little bit in the work meeting. Doesn't seem that there's much going on here other than just a slight adjustment of boundary, and therefore it's required to come before us. So unless there's any discussion or questions for anyone, I am ready to entertain a motion by any of the commissioners.
I'll be happy to make a motion. Commissioner Cunningham, I motion to approve the subdivision amendment application by Land Blue LLC to Lot 2 of the Ole Vista subdivision located at 4877 South Holladay Boulevard in the R110 zone, based on the following findings. 1, no petition from other owners in the subdivision has been received. Both lots are owned by the same owner. 2, the subdivision amendment complies with all ordinances. 3, the amendment does not create any nonconformities. And 4, fire access is unchanged.
All right.
This is Commissioner Barron. I second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We'll call for a vote. Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
Commissioner Font?
Aye.
Commissioner Gong?
Aye.
Commissioner Barron?
Aye.
And Chair Roach votes aye. So with that taken care of, thank you very much. All right, and now we'll move into the first item, well, item 1A and 1B basically, on the agenda for the Amare Vita residential subdivision and PUDs and preliminary plan and plat discussion items associated therewith. So with that, city staff.
Like this one may be easier to just present from the desk, but so a quick overview for the process that we'll go through on this, just so that it's clear. This is broken down into 3 steps, where first you'll be looking at a conceptual subdivision to see if the subdivision meets minimum requirements for the zone. That will be one public hearing, and the commission can open that public hearing tonight. And because of noticing, it needs to stay open, and then we can move into that the next meeting on September 2nd. The next 2 items are the creation of a planned unit development, and then from there a preliminary plat that incorporates the planned unit development items as discussed. or as decided on by the commission. So those will then be hearings. We can't open those hearings tonight until we get a conceptual subdivision approved. So that is why those are noted as discussion items on this agenda. Planned unit developments are a little involved, so helpful to have that discussion in a meeting tonight, and then that public hearing for those items can be open tomorrow once the public hearing for the first item is closed. So we'll go through the concept subdivision, and I am going to go back to my desk so we can scroll through stuff on this and bring that up on the screen. Okay, so the first item we'll be looking at is the conceptual subdivision. Conceptual subdivisions are based off of minimum zoning requirements. This one is a little bit different than what a standard subdivision might be because it does incorporate an element where a variance would be applicable. Variances are regulated by the state. There's 5 standards that have to be met for variances to be granted. Those are typically heard by an administrative appeals officer, usually an attorney who reviews the items and then either approves or denies or can grant some flexibility on variations to what the zoning code is. In this situation, one of the major items for a variance is a physical feature of a property that would limit its area to be developed. Natural features would be steep slopes, trails that cross through a property, easements that cross through a property, and natural features like waterways. So in this case, there is Big Cottonwood Creek. Our city ordinance does not allow for any sort of development within 100 feet of a creek bank. So that does significantly limit a buildable area on any lot. So in a standard subdivision process, this would be a case where it is clear that a variance would be granted based off of that major hardship of the physical feature of a property providing limitations. So they've incorporated that variance process into their concept subdivision and proposed a reduced minimum lot width. This allows for all of the lots based off of the land area on that east side of the creek from those 3 parcels, all accessible from a public road off of Holladay Boulevard. And then that moves any structures to be within 150 feet of the road for fire access. So they don't have any additional fire access that's required. And their total area in that side is 7.41 acres, I believe. Let me double check that. 7.18 acres. So it would, they have 7 lots laid out on that side. And then on the west side is a 2-acre minimum lot size with 150 feet for a lot width. So they have their lot widths laid out, and frontage is a little bit smaller on for any lot. It's 75% of the required width. So they've met the frontage for lot 2 because it's 75% of 150 feet. So there's their concept laid out. It's a little bit different than just the straightforward doesn't meet the minimum lot sizes because of the presence of a creek and the associated non-buildable area that would require some modifications to some zoning standards.
Okay. We had several questions during the work meeting that I think you answered already. Commissioners, any additional questions regarding the concept plan as it's been presented? Okay. And I guess it really doesn't matter when we open the public hearing, but I do know that it has to be continued. So,
It's going to be a lengthy one.
what's that?
It's going to be a lengthy.
Yeah, I can tell by the lack of members in the audience. So we'll open that public hearing, and then just before we move on to anything else, we'll need to make sure that we have the motion to continue. That being said, I think we can probably roll into the discussion items around the planned unit development
Great.
and conditional use permit.
Great. So a more unique situation on a PUD where we're splitting it across two zones. I will bring up the proposed PUD plan. The main concepts to, I think, take home on this is that from there, 7 lots on one side and 2 lots on the other side, so they have 9 total dwelling units. The applicant is proposing to shift one of the units from the R187 side onto the R143 side to create a more clustered development on that side of the creek. I think this is likely the best one to pop up here. So they're proposing singular access into the project area from Holladay Boulevard, and then another single access off of 6200 South. The bridge that goes across the creek connects interior to the property, but is not a fire access, so that won't be built to fire standards. It will be just for the residents of the PUD to use as they see fit. They've got setbacks that are all within the subdivision as well for each of their lots. And then they have perimeter setbacks on the entire project area. On the north side of the property, it starts at about 6'6" as a setback, and that's here close in that creek no build area. And then it increases and tapers out a little bit. You've got 11'3" here. This neighboring property is a private road access along here, and it's probably helpful if I bring up a parcel map so that you can see how that private road is laid out as we consider neighboring uses. So this private road is tied to this property and not tied to this property at all. So it's this property owners, it then creates a kind of built-in buffer area between these two properties. Let me switch my view. This was weird. And this neighboring property, their access is through here, and then their setback in this way. So not any structures or anything along this side where the front part of the PUD would be. So smaller setbacks proposed on that side. Again, maybe something that you'd see in a variance with having limited building area. A lot of people that are coming in for those variances are asking for reduced setbacks based off of their limited building area. The setback on Holladay Boulevard is 20 feet, and the applicant proposed that in their narrative as rear yard setbacks, where those are kind of corner lots interior to the project. It depends on how those houses are oriented. You could discuss that with the applicant a little bit more on their proposal as well, but this is conceptual homes, definitely not decided on footprints or layouts of those houses at all, but that shows proposed kind of where they could do driveways and front orientation. I think the idea is that they have everything kind of facing onto a road there. So this would function as a rear yard for these properties, or it could function as a side yard. And that's, again, something that you can discuss with the applicant, of maybe having restrictions on how those are oriented based off of their proximity to Holladay Boulevard.
And just because I'm not a map guy or an engineer, what's the little AA battery that I'm looking at in the middle of the screen here?
These ones,
No, to the right.
Along the road.
this one,
That, yeah, what is that?
that is a proposed pool, I believe.
Okay.
I think it was labeled on another one. So there's some parking areas and then just,
Parking?
Okay.
Community pool, huh?
mhm. Sorry, that's all trees. Okay.
Those must be lounge chairs.
It could be. So it's all proposed development. This PUD map is really just identifying where their building areas would be. They do have their building areas going fully to the private road. That's another item we discussed in the work meeting that you could discuss with the applicant as well, as if they would be open to any sort of setback on those private roads, potentially for future residents 50, 100, 200 years down the road. But this is how they've had it proposed. I think they're looking at some of those limitations of the no build area around the creek, and some of those lots are affected a little bit more than others and create some limitations on the buildable area. The other perimeter setback on the south side is 20 feet. We discussed in the work meeting that this neighboring property is a residential treatment center, so they have a parking lot there. And let me go back to this aerial view. So they've got roadway access here that's a little bit wider than 20 feet, it looks like. This will not let me measure it. Might be like 22 feet, and then they've got parking all over here. So the structure for the treatment facility is pushed to this side. The existing structure that's on here, they do have a detached accessory structure that is already there. They're not proposing to keep any of the existing structures, but that lot will have a structure that's pushed up closer that way, based off of where the creek no build area is.
Proposal is to bulldoze what's existing there and push it further into the property, if
Yeah.
approved for the PUD.
Right, to move it closer to Holladay Boulevard and further away from the creek. I think on the existing one, it may be within the 100 feet. I think I just lost my map there. Here we go.
I think it's a hot tub at the top of the battery.
Yeah, I think right now this tennis court is within 50 feet, or at least part of it is within 50 feet. The full area is within 100. This one, that tennis court is probably within that 50 feet as well. When I'm looking at kind of the curve that's along there.
And I can't remember, you said that because they are existing, they can be there, but if anything wanted to replace them, they couldn't replace it in the
Right.
existing footprint of the
Right,
tennis court.
right.
And everything that's there is getting,
Right, and I'm not sure if the proposal, if they're planning to keep the tennis court that's on that east side, or sorry, the north side of the project area, but you can clarify that with the applicant as to what amenities they're keeping there, and then some of those amenities that they're including for residents of the PUD to use for their recreation. I think that's one of the items that was noted. I did a review of the PUD elements. I believe that is on page, let me find a page reference number for you. Page 10 and 11. So the recreational element is oh, maybe it's not there. I know it is in here now. Setbacks.
I didn't bring any sugar, sorry.
Anyway, it is in there. I just don't, because there's kind of two different sections where it analyzes PUD elements. And there's the beginning one that is on page 4 and 5. And then there's a more thorough analysis in that page 10 and 11. But one of the elements is recreation for residents of the, oh, there it is, number 4. Maximizing and preserving vegetation and open space or other special development amenities to provide active and passive recreation opportunities for residents of the planned development.
Could you just, on your map, scroll down
Yeah.
to the tree canopy for me?
Uh-huh.
Because when I'm looking at your overlay map, I'm seeing like a lot of forest, and it doesn't necessarily align with all the little red circles that I'm seeing. So the red circles are the trees to come out,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So is there not a whole lot of trees not marked right beneath the road right there? Because this looks like a wintertime picture.
Like this one?
Down in the, so where there's the intersection inside the development, kind of just right down there on that lot right underneath that, isn't that entirely forested tree area right there?
It looks that way.
But there's no
But I
red
don't know if
circles, there's
they're-
no trees, so like,
Yeah, I
this
don't
street's,
know.
the canopy shows it as lawn.
Yeah, I don't know if there is just a substantial canopy on a couple of trees that are in here that is extending that far. And you can clarify some of that with the applicant as well as to how their tree survey was conducted.
Okay. Well, I think we'll quit picking on you then. The only other question I have for you is just, and if this is something, if maybe you can just look at between now and the next meeting, I'm just curious, how many neighbors within, let's say, a quarter mile in the R143 zone have lot sizes less than an acre? So how many non-conformings in that R143 that are within this project currently exist?
Yeah, I think that, I want to say quite a few years ago, there was analysis of how many non-conforming properties are in both the R187 zone and the R143 zone. So I can see what information I can find on that.
Yeah, just like I said, kind of within that Knudsen Corner scope, right, where this,
Right there.
this project exists. I'm sure they're all over the place throughout the city. I'm just, when we look at PUDs, we consider the impact to existing neighbors. And I feel like, when you're deviating from the zone, that does kind of qualify as an impact. So
Sure.
if you could identify that, that would be great. But with
Yep.
that, let's have the applicant come up and see if you can just jump in on some of these questions. You might have heard us, and we'll remind you if you don't.
And I can scroll around as needed on any sheets that you'd like.
Sure. Brandon Ames. I'm also here with JUB Engineering, so there might be some engineering questions that are more appropriately answered by Jaren here. But I guess maybe I can give a little bit of background. the goals of the PUD. So the landowner wanted to move here and build their forever home for him and his wife, and then provide lots for their children. And that's kind of the overarching goal. The lots are there, they may not ever be used. Some of the children might refuse, and he's pretty aware of that. But he wanted to provide kind of equal opportunity for all of their children, and that's kind of how we got to the number. In his estimation, there's probably a pretty good chance there won't be this many homes there, but he didn't want to leave anyone out. So the idea of this is he's putting a lot of effort and thoughtfulness into the trees and what's going to be planted there, and preserving nature and the creek and restoring everything that he can to look very natural, including the runoff. And that's why you see kind of a smaller private drive, and even some of the roads around his may not even be asphalt. He's very tree and nature driven. And so there are some red X's there, but some of those are maybe not the most greatest trees, and maybe not even native to the area. And so that was kind of, some of those are being removed, but I think what you'll see in the end when we can, with the landscape plan and everything that's coming in, it'll be probably more heavily treed than a lot of some of the poorer trees are.
And if you can you just speak to, like, this looks like a preliminary tree preservation map that's been included in the packet. And like I say, can you kind of explain that discrepancy where it looks like there's a whole lot of trees kind of going along that existing home where the road's proposed to go down the middle there, but none of that is identified on the map?
As being removed, you mean?
As being removed or preserved, it's just...
Oh, if they're not red, they're not being removed.
So the intent is to leave anything that's not marked as...
Yes, he was part of the walk, and particular about preserving. There's some really fantastic trees in there that he's very, especially on 6200 South, kind of anything that was large pine, and he's very passionate about the story that is told about those trees. And there's some beautiful maples in there that the design was meant to be built around the trees, and he's very passionate about that.
Okay.
I don't know if this aerial helps a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, it's just like on the tree preservation map, it's clearly in, the middle of winter when no foliage is there. Yeah. So that's what we're looking at, but then you overlay it with that, it's like, whoa, that's significant.
Yeah, he was very thoughtful in what could or would not come out. And we've read through some of the, what qualifies as, say, like a heritage tree, and 12 feet off of the road, 25 feet within a stream edge, and made sure that we've taken all of that into account. So I think the lot sizes are rather close to an acre, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
I know there's a deviation, and I don't think it's a very large deviation from the acre, if I remember right. And Jaron and Carrie could probably answer that better.
Yep. 3/4 plus. This one's almost a full acre. This one's slightly less, and then 0.72 is the smallest.
So even the bridge that will be over the creek is going to be very natural looking, and it's a neat opportunity for them and their family, and that's kind of his goal. This isn't a financially driven PUD to maximize density, other than to maximize opportunity for children.
Gotcha.
It's probably the most insight I could give as far as the reason behind the PUD.
Which is fair, and I appreciate that. I'm just, like I said, this is kind of a unique one, so we're trying to
It is.
vet it out, figure it out, make sure it's done right. As far as the setback off of Holladay Boulevard, so is it in the application to have that minimum 20-foot setback on any building pads off of that road then?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that is a setback from the new property line. So this development will have a dedication of 7 feet. So where the roadway is now will be another 7 feet that will go toward roadway, shoulder improvement, and then the 20 feet back from that new property line.
Does the roadway and shoulder improvement include a sidewalk or no sidewalk?
No sidewalk.
Okay. So just, what, was it widen the road?
It will likely just be a shoulder improvement, increasing that width of the shoulder.
Is it going to take out all those trees at the front to do that?
I don't know if they're within that area or not.
Yeah, it was hard
There's a
to
pretty
see.
significant power line conflict right
Yeah.
there, so.
It was
So
hard
we're
to
working
tell
on that.
from, I could see.
You guys aren't gonna bury the lines, are you?
They don't
Yeah,
need that.
it may be pretty minimal. If you're looking at a property line that's somewhere out here, the new one will be pretty close to like where the walls are that we went through and looked at.
Okay.
There are two, I saw when we walked in, we were looking at the wall on 62, and then there's also a wall to the north that are rather old and really unique, and his intentions are not to do anything with those and to let them be, and he knows there's historic significance with those. So any privacy will be built behind those with enough space to not disturb them or the tall pines that are along 6200, but.
I'm certain the historical committee would love that.
Yeah, he's,
Bless you.
first time I ever visited the site with him, he walked me to that wall and read the plaque and made sure that I understood the importance of his goal to preserve that and pass that along.
Is that included in the PUD application, is the preservation of those walls? Is that in the language of it, of the application?
I don't know if there's anything that's designated on here, but that certainly could be something that you could include. That there's a dedication here as well, 40 feet wide, kind of that area that curves over. There's a monument there with the old mill site, I believe. And so that will go to public access, and then the gate will be 18 feet back from that new property line. Let me go back to the street view on that. And it's a great place if you have time between now and next meeting, drive by. You can hop out there and walk around kind of the corner and get a feel of what that area is like.
You'll notice too, there, especially by the existing gate, there are parts of that old wall that the cap has fallen off and are crumbling. So there are intentions to use that same material and restore, where you can, or where you needs to, I guess. Some of that is not holding up very well, but.
And so it sounds like if the applicant's, intent is to preserve and keep that, then can we make sure that that's included in any motion that's put before us on this in the future, Gary?
Sure, yeah. I would just want to be clear as to what specific ones would be included and what ones would, if there were any that were not included. Sorry, I'm lost on my street view.
Yeah, no,
I could follow up on that.
That's the east side of the road.
Is it intended that all the visitor parking would be done interior through the gate?
Yes.
And so there wouldn't be any parking on Holladay Boulevard?
Correct.
Okay. And then the gate's 18 feet, the setback?
Yeah, that's a fire code. So you have to have enough space for a vehicle to pull fully into a driveway and wait for a gate to open.
Yeah, on Holladay Boulevard, I don't think 18 is sufficient. And then you're going to have quite a bit of interior traffic from delivery vehicles. I've always thought that, when you have a busy road, you got to accommodate more than one vehicle being stuck with or trying to convince someone to open the gate to make a delivery or Grubhub or whatever it is, and that. And I get particularly concerned if that backing up is across the pretend hiking trail that's there, which is also a bike lane, and that. And so they end up, what you do is you squeeze the bikes into the roadway without a lot of warning if they're backed up there, and that. And although Holliday's designated that as a hiking trail,
Yeah.
you can't have a hiking trail next to a 40-mile-an-hour zone. That just begs common sense.
You hike really fast.
So are you proposing that there's a further setback on the gate then?
I would prefer to see, enough for 2 vehicles, but, just a thought, and that, and I know, it's a gated community, high income, lots of activity with vehicles and parties and stuff like that, and the quicker you can get them all the way off the roadway and the bike and hiking lane, I think the better off you are.
Well, do you have the same issue off 62nd?
Right now, you have more room between the designated travel lane. I mean, there's a huge area there.
The traffic's a little slower on 62nd as well.
It's pretty skinny though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that might change slightly with that extra area that's being dedicated. So there's going to be a larger shoulder. Holladay Boulevard is a 40-foot wide right-of-way, so it is a little bit wider than some of our other streets. So you might have, if there were multiple cars that were lined up to get through the gate, I don't know there's a 20-foot wide width. There might be some space there. We could do 2 cars side by side if needed, or that there's enough space on the shoulder for them to pull in there.
And you did mention no sidewalks.
Right.
I continue to be frustrated as why when we allow new building, we excuse them from the expense of building a public sidewalk.
Sure. And a lot of that is in the general plan and where sidewalks are required versus not. We have a flow chart.
Why are you gating?
But
Why don't
you
just
can
not-
talk to your council member.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like, here's this major road and we don't have a sidewalk on either side,
Sure.
which there ought to be at least one on one side. And then,
Well, nobody there is walking.
Well,
Pardon me, I didn't hear your question.
Why are you gating it
Safety.
from other Holiday Inns? riffraff?
Well, I don't know specifically. That's a big
I mean,
guess.
it's not a sketchy part of town.
Yeah, I think that there are people who have a reason to protect themselves and their family
Most
at
everyone
all
has a gate there.
times.
So,
I think there's a significant
cool, come on.
expense that goes
You can't
into this
expect
as
us
well.
not to have a gate.
That's
but-
reasonable.
but other builders have that expense.
I don't,
Much smaller
all
properties.
right, well,
I don't think we can assume that it's going to be in the family in perpetuity. So maybe he's building this for himself and his family
Keep his
for
kids
now,
out,
but
yes, huh?
eventually, these properties will probably be sold outside the family.
Yeah, he has, we are writing CCNRs and HOAs that are beneficial to the family to be the owners of the lots, but yeah, I don't know that any of us can guarantee much. At least I feel like I probably have about 45 more years of guaranteeing anything, and after that, I don't know.
The first
So
divorce
you're right.
will raise that issue.
So I was just explaining his goals.
No, that's great.
And we are writing CCNRs and HOA documents that preserve nature in the creek and make sure that, and what you saw there was him kind of showing like, this is an average size home. He understands that his children can't build maybe what he could build but wants to give them opportunity to live by them. And so that's why they were placed on there. And there will be, in the CCNRs, there's kind of a pattern book that makes sure that whoever does build the homes all have a similar feel. They may not have to be the exact same architecture, but the architecture can match. And so there's a thoughtfulness going into that and orientation and making sure there's space between them. And
well, and
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
So on the lot 4, there's a pipeline and diversion easement. Is there a width to that? Because it looks like it cuts through where the buildable area is going to be. Is that going to cause a conflict? You see that
Jaren
on
might be able
lot
to
4?
answer this, or correct me, Jaren, but if I remember right, I think that is being abandoned because it was found that there's nothing
So
there now or
do we
something.
want to designate that as being abandoned or?
We
so
wouldn't,
that-
yeah, we wouldn't want to do that until we have a legal documentation of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not just that, you're right.
It looks a lot like a common.
Yeah, if
Sorry,
you
what did he
notice, it's
say?
not just a strip.
So-
It was a
Well,
larger.
that's why I was asking, is there a width to that or is it just like a 2-foot pipe?
Or it looks like,
But so you can't build over it though, right?
Well, if you can locate the pipe. You can locate the pipe. But I mean, like, that, the easement is the shape of an old parcel that existed back in it's a blank easement. So they just said, there's an easement for a pipe.
So when they're excavating, are they going to be able to dig the pipe up and remove it or abandon it like you're saying? I mean, I'm not trying to cause difficulty, but I just don't want to have something that, I guess we're doing the
Yeah.
public hearing for the PUD next time, right?
Yeah. And I would say that that could be a condition that I can incorporate in that staff report of, before any final plat, that there's a verification that existing easements, specifically that pipe and drainage easement, is abandoned or no longer necessary. So we go through that process occasionally with like power lines. That's pretty common. If people want to build a structure and there's a power line that has an easement going across it, they'll work with the power company, see if it's abandoned or can be abandoned or put underground, an alternative place for it, and then incorporate that utility into a different area.
Okay,
So that might be an alternative. If it can't be abandoned, can it be relocated in the
so as your
project?
part of your process, you verify whether it can be abandoned? Is that typically it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and also the comment I was making in the work discussion, you've got the setbacks in the private road. So the house can actually be built on the road according to your setbacks.
Is that on this north
That's
side?
on 3,
Page 8.
4, anything that was adjacent to the public, or the, excuse me, the private road.
Oh,
That's a PUE, not a setback. So that's just an easement to run the pipe, like water line through and sewer line through.
I think it's
Oh,
clearer.
I'm sorry, I thought that was a setback too.
No. It's clearer here where it's labeled as a 5-foot PUE.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but
But that's then PUEs that are on each of these. So there you can see it on this one too.
Okay, is there a setback line on the other
On the property.
PUD? Or-
On any of the,
On the
Yeah, what's
internal lots.
I thought there was a setback at some
it's,
point.
it's on
like
the
a building
perimeter.
envelope.
Yeah, so you've got a setback on the perimeter here. This is that dark line. So perimeter setback here, 20-foot setback on Holladay
So
Boulevard.
we have no interior setbacks.
Right.
Oh, wow. So the one you showed where the houses or the potential building envelopes are?
Conceptual.
Okay.
So, I think another point with PUDs as well is that when you're looking at dwelling units, you could put multiple dwelling units in a single structure. In this situation, they've put them onto individual lots, but would like to have the ability to build to whatever extent that is without it, without having setbacks for each of those. You could still put in place limitations on your total coverage within the project, and that's kind of what we've done before in previous PUDs, is that, okay, your interior setbacks, they don't necessarily matter. You would need to still have a limitation of how much structures can cover within the project.
So in the typical PUD, you don't have designation. I thought there was at least a minimum setback, that there could be like a sliding scale where they could they could reduce it maybe on one side if it,
Yeah, and it's typically on the perimeters.
oh, interesting.
So your building pads can be anything within
So the building code would be the precedent-setting
Yeah.
setback then? Okay.
But in a way, we can't build over the PUE.
Right.
So essentially, the PUE will function.
Well, then that kind of goes back to the question of building a house on the road. Because the road is 20 feet, so you have a 5-foot PUE in the right of way?
Goes at 5 feet off
Maybe
either
there's
side,
10.
so it's 10 feet
Maybe
running
there's
down
just
the middle of the
black
road.
marks on the sand, but yeah.
Yeah, it's 10 feet into the road here.
So you could
Or I guess
build
the
on
10 feet is here. So what you're saying, Commissioner Barron, is that this then becomes buildable area,
Yes.
except it's labeled as no build because it is fire access.
Okay.
So your building area just goes to the road.
And that was kind of the purpose of actually putting some homes on there with a 2-car garage, was to make sure that with the access road, PUEs, the 100-foot or the setback in the rear by the creek, we could fit a reasonable home on there. So they're definitely not intended to say this will be the home that is built there, but we did that as an exercise to make sure that the lots were reasonably buildable.
And I think with, so you'll have your property lines for the lots that go into the middle of the road. That's then a way that you can share ownership without having to parcel out the road and make it a common area road. So it's just
I
where they
understand, I
put all that.
appreciate
Yeah.
that. But, so typical PUD, there's performance kind of based, where there's more open space designated or stuff like that for the allowance of this much flexibility and setbacks and so forth. Is the creek the open space, or is that the enhancement of
Yeah,
why
so
they're getting so much of an allowance to?
Yes. Yep, the creek is the open space. This is all identified as building area, and conceptually that may serve as partial open space, but it's not on their plan. That could be something you could discuss with the applicant of,
Okay.
if you're going to do an amenity that's a common area amenity, do you want to put that on your PUD plan or just leave it as open-ended? Maybe it's a requirement to have some amenity of open space that's accessible to anybody who lives there.
I mean, the creek is kind of already
And the creek
established
is
as
that
open
one.
space,
Yeah.
so you're not really getting anything additional to the.
Right.
Yep.
I mean,
Well,
okay.
and so we got some good discussion points, and I don't want to get too far run away
I
on
appreciate
some of this.
it.
It's good discussion. That said, commissioners, do we have other questions for the applicant at this time about anything that we haven't touched on?
Can I ask about Lot 8? Because it looks like we have the battery, which is a swimming pool, we think, which would probably be, it appears that that's part of the 0.79 acres on Lot 8. But it's an amenity probably for an HOA and not the owners owned by that lot. Is it proper that that property would have to be deducted from the size of that lot?
I don't know if the PUD has set requirements as to if you'd have common area or amenities that are accessible, that it has to be common area, not privately owned. And I think a lot of that then can be addressed in CCNRs or HOAs, how access is managed to amenities. But that's then a potential
Don't do
that,
that.
yeah, that private ownership of Lot 8, that line could move, and then that could be common space. Likely.
If it is a
then-
common space.
Yeah.
And it isn't part of Lot 8, and therefore the size of Lot 8 is smaller.
Sure.
Significantly, but it
Yeah.
also could just be the swimming pool for Lot 8.
Yeah, we-
It's enough
It
to
could
share.
just be the swimming pool for Lot 8. But
They have-
that's,
So they would pay the taxes on it, and the HOA would reimburse them, or how would that happen?
Probably, yeah. I think that the owner would probably say, well, that's the swimming pool
Yeah,
for Lot 8.
okay, yeah.
so similarly, each of those lots that border the creek all have a public amenity, but it's all privately owned. incorporated into their lot size. So lot 8 or lot 6 has however much area that is the creek, but it's still within their private property line. So it's, in terms of ownership wise, it's likely just the easiest way to parcel it up so that it is, everybody has a similar size property. However they decide to pay for taxes on the property is worked out in their CCNRs.
Yeah.
All right.
Just about, I'm sure you know this, but it's been an issue before the planning commission before where city ordinance, the planning commission considers city ordinance, but not CCNRs. So just as they're being written, they just probably want to know that in the future. If
Yeah, I mean,
someone wants to
CCNRs
change
are all
land
great
use,
intents and wishes, but it's not enforceable by the city, basically, right?
So just knowing that.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, it then becomes, so in a very broad sense, legal wise, it becomes something that they have to work out. If they say down the road, if properties are sold, it's sold with the CCNRs in place. In order to remove CCNRs, all of the properties would have to agree and have them removed or to have them amended. You have specific requirements with HOAs that dues have to be paid. You have to have a board. So there's legal requirements that have to be met. And then same kind of legal process to remove those. But then it becomes a legal process of enforcement of those regulations. But as far as the city's end, it's, yes, it meets their requirements, or no, it doesn't in our ordinance.
I think it's great you're up here playing along with us. We're just, we don't want to get burned and, put something in here that's, potentially going to be like, oh, he passed away 6 months from now and, now we're going to sell it all off and, we've already got approvals for all this stuff, right? Like, we don't want to turn it into something undesirable for the community, so that's why we're vetting out as thoroughly as we are with all these questions, so I appreciate your patience.
That's why we're here. It's totally fine. I think the more questions you ask, the more we all kind of understand each other and where we're coming from, and it helps us address it, so it's fine.
So for me, I know just one thing to take away looking into the PUD public hearing and potential approval in a future meeting after this, a little bit more clarity on the Lot 4 tree canopy, because right now it looks like a house is going to replace a forest. And I'm a big advocate when it comes to PUDs that are this heavily wooded. I'm not as concerned about the specific trees preserved as much as the canopy itself. So if you're going to replace an acre of canopy, can we put that acre in the other lot on the west side to put it back so that, so just something to kind of consider as, we're getting closer to that being approval is, can we get a little bit more clarity around the tree preservation side of it?
I think there's and I was reading through it, and I just want to make sure, and maybe this isn't the place, but I do understand that. We went through it with the owner, and he wanted to thoroughly understand to make sure he complied with how it reads, and so those are the intentions, and that's why it was shown here as well, to be transparent about, the only thing we don't have here is like the landscape plan, which shows the vision of what it will be, which I think would help you see.
Right.
But I think when I was looking it up and reading, I think there were 4 main points about trees and what constitutes a heritage tree, or what can be removed, or if it does, I think it was 50% need to be replaced on site, and then 50% can be off site. And so we've started going through that with him. But admittedly, I don't fully understand it that well, but I know that we're working with the landscape architect to make sure that we're complying with anything that's in the city code.
Of course. Like I say, I just know that's one of those things we kind of look at a little closer with more scrutiny as we get into these PUD processes is,
absolutely,
what are we preserving? Because then the city has an easier time looking and saying, okay, here's something we're getting for what we're giving outside of the norm.
Yep.
Is that fair?
Yeah, and they do have, it's in their second sheet, their very large, extensive inventory. They do have proposed replacement trees. and the mature canopy size included in all that. So total tree count on the site is 734. Let's see. They've broken it down into different groups, 70,000. Dennis is going to go home and analyze this very thoroughly.
Mostly
Off
I'm
of
just
the
looking
tree.
at when I see
Yep.
the visual and it's like, well, here's all the trees and here's our list. Usually it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
there's usually not a swath of forest that's just blank
Yeah, and
in the
maybe
middle
some
of
of
all
that,
right?
some of that PUD plan with the tree replacement would just be, I know that there's a balance between flexibility and requirements. So we do have a requirement to replace trees. If you want to see specific areas where those replacements are going to be as preserved open space, or if you're okay with just a broader, you need to replace this canopy size. So it's the balance of flexibility of they don't quite know exactly where structures may be. In some cases, some of those lots on the east side may end up with trees along the front. They could place trees along their private road. There's a lot of options for trees. So that's then the commission would need to decide, do you want to have designated areas shown, or are you comfortable with just saying replacement of an equivalent amount?
Commissioner Font.
Forgive me if this has been in plans before and I haven't noticed it, but could you pull up the page again where it talked about the canopy that was being taken out and the canopy being replaced? I'm just curious about this because I haven't noticed this before, where you talk about mature canopy square footage provided by proposed trees. Is that canopy provided at maturity of those trees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we don't need people to bring in giant, big,
Right.
mature, like matching one for one. It's that it will grow to be that way. And that's the sustainability portion of tree preservation is that, you're going to have trees that get older and age. You're going to have health issues that might come into play. So it's making sure that we have new trees being planted that will grow to the maturity to replace those trees as they have disease or die or whatever the case may be. So it's a longer term, like sustainability type viewpoint.
Thank you.
And we've had you up here for quite a while. Any other questions for the applicant at this time? Sorry, we've just kind of lost ourselves in discussion. We'll have you sit down. Thanks so much.
I'm used to
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And so just quick discussion points that I've written down, and you can throw them in if I've missed anything here. So some kind of preservation language around the walls, those stone walls that they intend to preserve on any motions for approval of this. And then we talked a little bit about tree preservation and what that looks like and clarifying on that if possible, and then finding out how many neighbors within, half mile, whatever, of this project are non-conforming on the R143 are some things that I'd like to see before this comes before the commission again. Commissioners, anything else to discuss or that would be nice to have before potentially rendering decisions next meeting?
Yeah, a deeper, that gate.
The gate?
The gate?
Gate, yeah.
Okay.
And Commissioner Cunningham, you were talking about, I thought there was another item that you brought up. Maybe it was just with the pool.
Yeah,
Maybe some like clarification or statement around like,
Yeah, I don't know if
Common
that's a
or
city
ownership?
issue or not. It just seems that normally in an HOA, it would be a common area maintained and paid, the taxes paid by the HOA directly. And that, but if that happens, it would seem like you couldn't include that acreage in that lot.
so maybe some clarification about
Yeah,
how they're,
yeah,
if
just,
sharing some of that or managing that within their, and it can be broad, it doesn't need to be super detailed, but
And it may just
informational.
need great lawyers to work that out internal to their organization. But
And I believe Commissioner Font had one more question for the applicant. Sorry, we thought we were off the hook.
Do you know whether the owner is going to develop all the properties, whether he has compliance from all of his family members or not?
I don't, and I think he's just making them available. I know that he has one child in particular who would like to build in there, and that's the only one I've heard of. So I just know of one. And I don't even know that really the pool should be shown in there. I think that was just like an idea of, at the time, I don't even know the probability of a pool. I think it was just what can we do with some space for the homes here that can have an enjoyable area, and maybe it's grass. I don't know. So I appreciate your points, but that's a really conceptual battery. I was just talking to Jared and said, well, are you sure we're even doing a pool? And he said, no, that was just drawn as an idea one time. So I'm sorry that we got kind of hung up on that, but I think when we can show what the landscape plan and everything's going to look like, that's a little more realistic and beneficial to
Well, where this all
visualize.
ties together, I think, is where we're kind of getting
Yeah.
interwoven with some of this, because the concept itself is pretty easy and simple, right? But then when you say,
Yeah.
okay, well, now I want a PUD, and we're talking about common space and open areas and uses, that's where it's kind of like, okay, well, define that a little bit more for us, so.
So I think his hope is that all of his children build there, but I've only heard of one.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
So then if there's fewer houses that are built there, then there will be more open space. And maybe the open space is just the amenity of, instead of having a pool or court or whatever in there. We've also discussed between staff, like in PUDs, garden areas or other private space sometimes, or your roadways. It could be a tree-lined street. An amenity could be a private gated community. Like, what is amenities for a community vary based off of what the people who live there want to see. I don't know if that could be something that could go to the applicant of like, okay, if you were proposing an amenity, where generally would that go? What would it entail? Is it just open space? Is it just the creek and access to the creek across all properties?
So does the city typically look at the amenities as public or private? I mean,
Private.
usable for the entire community or
No.
just those people who?
Yep, just usable by those people who live within the development. And that's when I pointed out number 4, active and passive recreation opportunities for residents of the planned development and or the community. So you might have a PUD that comes up and they say, well, we want to use this as a public space, we're willing to dedicate it, or we're going to have a trail easement that the public can use, we're willing to do that, but it's not a requirement. It's just whatever the applicant and property owner propose.
So
Seems
is it possible then, as this rolls out, assuming the PUD is approved, when building rolls along, is unfolded, could this come back to us time and time again?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's if you leave it open, if they were to add in common space or wanted to remove some private areas from each lot and make them just common space outright, that could come back as an amendment to the PUD. That could be a condition that you place of if you're going to change private ownership and want to include more common areas, then to have it be an amendment.
Or ADUs?
Well, and ADUs would count as dwelling units. So it's,
Entitled to accessory structures based on code,
right.
right? So they built a million sheds if it's in code. So, not that they would. All right. Well, I think we've had some good discussion around this. We do need a motion to continue it.
We
Looking for,
don't have to have a motion.
oh, we don't?
Oh, on the
On
first
the public
one.
hearing?
For the first one. Did you open the public hearing for the
I did.
first one? Okay.
Somewhere in there I threw in that it's open. If I didn't, it's open still right now because I said it is.
Okay.
All right.
So we need a motion to continue.
We need a motion to continue.
Okay, I'll motion to continue the public hearing concerning the subdivision for Amari Vida.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Gong, and we'll call for a vote. Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
Commissioner Font?
Aye.
Commissioner Gong?
Aye.
Commissioner Barron?
Aye.
Chair Roach votes aye, and so that will be continued until a future meeting. Thank you very much. And then we just have left on the agenda is the meeting minutes, and we discussed those in the work meeting. So unless anyone has any questions or changes, I am looking for a motion to approve the 5-6 minutes.
I motion to approve the 5-6 minutes.
All right, second?
Second?
Second. All right. Commissioner Barron?
Aye.
Commissioner Gong?
Aye.
Commissioner Font?
Aye.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Aye.
Chair Roach votes aye. Those are approved. And then we have to, I'll make the motion on approving the minutes from 7:15 with just the note of the typo on page 12, line 5, with Mrs. Marsh's name, not March, although I probably mispronounced it, and that's why ChatGPT or something picked it up. But with that, I'll make a motion to approve those.
Aye.
Okay, we got a vote and an aye.
Sorry.
Commissioner Font.
Second.
Seconded. Commissioner Cunningham.
Aye.
Commissioner Font.
Aye.
Commissioner Gong.
Aye.
Commissioner Barron.
I abstain.
You
I
abstain.
wasn't there.
You can still vote aye. It's all right. We still have our quorum. Chair Roach votes aye, and those get approved. So that takes care of those. And with that, we have worked through our agenda. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I'll make the motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Done. Have a good night.
Wow.
Nice work.
I was noticing